Hello, my name is Katie Koca, and I'm Assistant Curator at Curator Art Museum with the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I curated the exhibition, Pressing Issues, Printmaking of Social Justice in 1930s United States, which brings together around 40 prints by artists who, through their work, produce critical commentaries on the social injustices plaguing the country during the Great Depression. Divided into 4 sections: fighting for workers' rights, women at work, condemning racial terror, and denouncing fascism. The exhibition foregrounds how artists demanded real societal and legislative change during this period, and considers how far the country has progressed in terms of these injustices and how much work still needs to happen. It feels like so much has occurred within the last 4 years, seemingly something new every day, that I wanted to draw some connections to the election and to social justice themes. After scouring the museum's collection in storage, I became more and more enthralled with the prints that were produced during the Depression, specifically those created under the auspice of the Works Progress Administration's Federal Art Project. Curator Art Museum has a vast WPA collection, hundreds of prints that the government allocated to the museum in 1943, once the WPA dissolved. There were certainly works that conveyed a sense of national pride and nostalgia, while others portrayed the hardships and anxieties brought on by the Depression. But what I was seeking were works that railed against the injustices caused by society, capitalism, and the government, just without an overly political tone. Overt political messages can overpower art at times, and what struck me was how critical some of these prints were in varying degrees of subtlety. Don't get me wrong, I love a good political message, but for this particular project, I found that the visual imagery and messages that the everyday person would recognize and empathize with really informed my choices. And printmaking seemed to be an obvious choice because it's often viewed as a democratic medium, one accessible in terms of reproducibility, content, and availability, and is repeatedly used by artists with social and political intentions. One of the most prevalent themes in art during the Great Depression was labor, whether it was politicized through the imagery of the heroic male worker or expressed in sentimental terms, focused on the rewarding value of manual labor. However, artists included in the section Fighting for Workers' Rights sought to raise awareness of harsh and exploitative labor conditions through their prints, whether that was critiquing child labor, highlighting the economic hardships of those barely scraping by, and exposing inadequate working conditions, all with the intention to effect real change. Although it still pertains to labor, I also wanted to highlight prints that portray the significance of women as active agents of labor. So I organized a section in the exhibition entitled Women at Work. While depictions of the male laborer abound in paintings, murals, prints, and illustrations from the 1930s, and specifically in more politically motivated works, representations of women in the workforce are largely absent in prints, reflecting the gender discrimination at play during this tumultuous era. Unfortunately relevant during the current socio-political climate is a theme that appears in another section in Pressing Issues, one that centers on the condemnation of racial terror. The difficult and graphic imagery on view in this section asserts the complicity of white Americans in the racial terror that targeted Black Americans in the 1930s. The last section is titled Denouncing Fascism. In addition to the pictorial language of class conflict and working conditions, artists in the 1930s condemned discrimination and violent suppression incited by the rise of fascist ideologies occurring in Europe. Leftist artists, concerned with the human suffering caused by these fascist uprisings, produced illustrations for journals and magazines, paintings, and prints that vehemently denounced such acts, often utilizing modernist visual strategies to heighten the viewer's emotional response. So in closing, numerous connections between the present day and the 1930s are evident, given the escalating social and economic upheaval in the United States within the last decade. Our current political climate, intensified and exacerbated by the global pandemic, is fueling similar sorts of isolationism and nationalism. There's been a rise of fascist ideologies and a resurgence of brutal racism. Often overlooked, these prints from the 1930s provide a visceral and much-needed reminder of how visual artists can call attention to and combat oppression in all its forms. I hope you reflect on the themes conveyed in this timely exhibition, and thank you for listening.